Kapila Muni's instructions to his mother on the practice of Ashtanga Yoga. And in these verses, we are reading about the highest stage of perfection of Ashtanga Yoga and what such a yogi is experiencing. And in today's verse, we read about Muktashrayam. So this is the stage where the yogi has come to the stage of liberation. Mukta Ashrayam, Yarhi, at that time, Nirvishayam, not attached to the Vishaya, objects of the senses, Indriya Vishaya, Nirvishayam, Viraktam, detached, indifferent, Nirvanam, extinction. Here Prabhupada has used the word extinction. Ruchati, attains. Manaha sahasa yatharchihi. So the mind attains that stage, manaha, muktashrayam, nirvishayam, viraktam, nirvanam, ruchati. So the yogi's mind attains that stage of nirvishayam, viraktam, nirvanam. Sahasa yatharchihi. Immediately this mind attains that stage at the stage of muktashrayam, liberated stage, yatharchihi, just like a flame is extinguished. So that's the verse statement. And then Atmahanam atra purusho avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. Avyavadhanam, uninterrupted, no separation, unbroken. Avyavadhanam ekam, that oneness, anvikshate, of what? Atmanam, of the mind. Atra purushaha, that person's, atra purushaha, at that stage, Atmanam avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. He experiences oneness of the mind. And what is that? How does he experience? Pratinivruttha guna pravahaha. Pratinivruttha, completely ended. Guna pravahaha, the flow of the material qualities, the flood of the material qualities. When the mind is thus completely freed from all material contamination, nirvishayaha, and detached from material objectives, viraktam, it is just like the flame of a lamp, yatharchihi. At that time, yarhi, the mind is completely dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord. Atmanam avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. Dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with Him. Ekam anvikshate is experienced because it is freed from the interactive flow of the material qualities. It is freed, pratinivruttha, guna pravahaha, from the flow of the material qualities. So this is the stage of the dhyana, ashtanga yogi, dhyana yogi, how he has controlled his mind, controlled his senses, fixed his mind on the meditation of the Lord, and how that meditation progressed. All of that was described by Kapila Deva. And now these are descriptions of the advanced stage, Muktashrayam, liberated stage of that of such a yogi. And Prabhupada has pointed out some important things in the purport. As long as the mind is in material consciousness, it must be forcibly trained to accept meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the words used here by Srila Prabhupada is very powerful. It must be forcibly trained. So, as long as the mind is in material consciousness. So it's not easy to free the mind from material consciousness. Our desires, our convictions, our determination, our aspirations in life, all contaminated by material consciousness. how I can enjoy sense gratification, how I can exploit the material resources for my enjoyment. This is what the conditioned soul's preoccupation in the material world is. And it's not easy to come out of that kind of a stage. So, for those who are serious about bringing the mind out of such consciousness, the mind must be forcibly trained to practice devotional activities. And here, in the case of Dhyana Yoga, it is to meditate on the Supreme Lord. Just like in the morning Mangalarati reading, we read that word, Prabhupada, commenting on that verse in the Bhagavatam 7th canto, Suyantritaha. Yantra means a machine. Suyantritaha. Just like a machine, how it works. In the same way, the mind should be engaged. Without these practices, we cannot make spiritual advancement. We will be pulled down by material consciousness, materialistic thinking. Even one becomes a scholar of Vedic knowledge, if one has not practiced these things, will not become freed from material consciousness. So, well-behaved, suyantritaha, that was in the stage of the Bhagavatam when Narada Muni is instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj on the principles of brahmacharya, how a student must practice in spiritual life under the care of the spiritual master, where how it is described that the disciple, the student, must suyantritaha in strict conformity of the discipline that the spiritual master has given. The disciple must practice spiritual life, and that is the way we can hope to bring the consciousness, we can bring the mind out of material consciousness. So it's a very important stage. And then Atra purusho avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate atmanam atra purusho avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. It's a very nice explanation of avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate, because the impersonalists misunderstand these kind of verses. Avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. Experiencing that oneness of the mind, atmanam. Atmanam, here Prabhupada has explained, it refers to the mind, that oneness of the mind. So people say that our consciousness should become one with the universal consciousness, and that is the way, all the sufferings can be ended. Prabhupada is giving a very practical example here, how avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate was experienced by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. So there was no avyavadhanam in the beginning, it was vyavadhanam. There was Krishna had one intention, Arjuna had a different intention. There was difference. But then after hearing Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, Arjuna said, Karishye yatha vachanam tava. Now I am ready to act as per your wishes. There was oneness between Krishna's intent, Krishna's desire, and Arjuna's desire. So that is avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate. So if we analyze carefully in the material world, all the conditioned souls, we have our own ideas. We grow up, our family and our education and the people whom we consider as our role models in our life, and they all inspire us and influence our thinking. And so we all develop those, based on those kind of inputs, we develop a certain kind of a conviction, a certain kind of an understanding about life, and what we want to achieve in life, and then we pursue that all our life. Where is the understanding that if God has created this world, even for the pious religious people, even they don't consider this. If God is the supreme controller, if the God is the one who has created this world, if God is the one who has created me, what was His intent for this world? What was His intent for me? Does anyone think about that? Hardly. So actually, even in a pious life of a conditioned soul, there is no avyavadhanam. There is no thinking about what is the intent of the Lord. Can I dovetail my intent with the intent of the Lord? That thinking is not there. That attempt is not there. So, avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate refers to how we can bring the conditioned soul's intent with the intent of the Lord. Actually, very few people know all these things. This is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. This is given by the Acharyas. But hardly anyone knows these things as Srila Prabhupada presents them. So, the best example of nirvana is cited in the Bhagavad Gita. Here, nirvana refers to extinction of the mind, meaning that the conditioned soul has one mind. The Lord has another mind. Extinction. Arjuna had one mind. Krishna had a different mind. And after hearing Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna extinguished his mind. In the sense, he extinguished his own thinking and completely dovetailed with the Lord's thinking and Lord's intent. But that does not mean Arjuna lost his individuality. This is what Prabhupada is pointing out. The Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this. They think that oneness necessitates loss of individuality. This is how the Mayavadi philosophers misunderstand this whole thing. The impersonalists. Though they think that avyavadhanam ekam anvikshate means the individual soul has to become one with the Supreme Soul, and then that individuality should be lost. And they attempt that. But of course that can never be done. When the Lord sees that such a living entity is aspiring for such a thing, He says, all right, I'll bless you. You can become one with my Brahmajyoti. And try to experience that ekam, your understanding of ekam. But actually you are not ekam with me. Individuality sense, you are an individual, I am an individual. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. These are all Upanishads words. But the impersonalist philosophers miss these points. Actually it requires, one has to be very fortunate to get the right conclusion on the dot about Vedic wisdom. What are the Vedas talking about? What is the intent? What is the message? Not easy to get that. By scholarship one cannot get that. We know in India there are so many Vedic scholars. They have not understood this. Only by coming in touch with a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, we will get to understand all these things. Very rare. So Prabhupada is giving this example about this. And then this idea about oneness. We know today in this world, yoga is a very popular word. And the word yoga actually means, like Prabhupada explains, linking up. A very wonderful definition of yoga is given by Srila Prabhupada in the 4th chapter, 1st verse of the Gita. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. There Prabhupada translates the word yogam as the signs of one's relationship with the Supreme. We are trying to connect, right, the soul with the Supreme. Now, Prabhupada is saying that connection is called yoga, but that connection is a science. Please don't think that it is some kind of a belief. It's some kind of an imagination. It is some kind of a sentiment. It is some kind of an opinion of some people. No, it's a science. The science of one's relationship with the Supreme. There is the Supreme, and we are there, and there is a connection. And that's called yoga. So, three things are here. There is a conception of ourself, then there is a conception of the connection, and there is a conception of the Supreme. Right? These three things are required. Individual, the Supreme, and the connection. Now, to get an accurate understanding of the conception of the self, the accurate understanding of the connection, and the accurate understanding of the Supreme. This is what we are trying to understand in Krishna consciousness. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that connection is strongest with love. Every other connection is a kind of a connection, but less than the best and the firm and the complete connection. And the next is the conception of the self and the conception of the Supreme. Again, there is a lot of confusion about all these things. Conception of the self, okay, we are the soul. Now, when it comes to the conception of the Supreme, what is that conception of the Supreme? So, the Buddhists have one understanding. The Buddhists, we read about that even in our school days. The Buddhist conception of perfection is called nirvana. So that's the general understanding. Nirvana means extinction. Actually, nirvana in the Buddhist, when you ask a Buddhist about what happens after life, their understanding is shunyamada, void. Now in this life, you have to reduce your desires. Material, all of these desires is the one which agitates your mind and complicates your life and messes up your life. So you have to get rid of the desires, all of the desires, and come to a stage of nirvana, extinction of the desires. And they try to come to that stage. Actually, they have not begun to understand the conception of the Supreme at all. But it is a fact that nirvanam, extinction of the material desires, is an essential prerequisite further to understand what is the nature of the Supreme. That's a requirement. But Buddhism only takes us to that level. And then the impersonalism is the next level of development, where Srila Prabhupada points out there is a hint of spirituality in Shankaracharya's teachings, in the impersonal teachings. It is an aspect of the Veda. It is a reading from the Vedic literatures, because Shankaracharya was reading from the Vedic literatures. But the conception of the Supreme that he promoted, that he advocated, that he taught was a very basic hint of what is that spirituality. He talked about Brahman. What is the nature of that Brahman? Those are later stages, and that came with the next set of the 4 Vaishnava Acharyas coming. So it's a gradual progression of the understanding of the Supreme, because we cannot understand the Supreme and appreciate this understanding and experience that one unless we go through these stages of evolution of consciousness. Otherwise, there is no big deal. We can just be talking about it. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, we can keep talking about the sweetness of the honey by looking at the bottle, looking at the color, and maybe even licking the bottle. But we are not experiencing honey, isn't it? We can experience honey by a process. Open the lid, take a spoon, scoop out, and then put it in your mouth, and then you can experience the sweetness of honey. So, unless one is going through all these stages, just understanding of the Supreme, one cannot experience that. So, over hundreds and thousands of years, these evolutions have happened from Buddhist understanding to Shankaracharya, and then all of these Vaishnava acharyas coming, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming and telling us that the ultimate understanding of the Supreme is Krishna. And Krishna, and even in Krishna's understanding, there are varieties of devotional rasas with Krishna, and among them, the Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam, or Rati Keli, what we sing about every day in the morning about the spiritual master. Rati Keli, meaning those attractive activities of the Lord. Nikunja Yuno Rati Keli Siddhai. In the Nikunja, in the pleasure groves of Vrindavan, that is considered to be the highest understanding of the Supreme, where the Supreme Lord is relishing the highest rasa with his most exalted devotees, the gopis. That is considered the highest understanding. And as far as the connection is concerned, that connection is, the best connection is with the Lord, with the Supreme, is in the stage of bhakti, or in the highest stage of bhakti, which is known as prema bhakti. So these are the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The soul is an individual. We are an individual, eternally individual. And our Swarupa is to be Krishna Dasa, Jivera Swarupa hoy Krishnera Nitya Dasa. And that connection brought about by love with the Lord in his activities, the Lord who performs these wonderful activities with his devotees. And the highest level of those devotional activities are the example of the gopis. This is the complete understanding, highest understanding of the soul, the connection, and of the Supreme. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message is. And for us to understand all these things, we have Srila Prabhupada presenting this, taking us through this understanding, giving us a certain plan and a program for us so that our consciousness evolves, purifies, evolves, and begins to understand this. This is a complete package what Srila Prabhupada has given us. It's a great blessing what a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada is providing us. Now, this word nirvana, what Kapila Deva has used here in the Bhagavatam, Krishna also talks about that in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna had asked this question, what are the symptoms of a sthita prajna, whose prajna has become very, very fixed? And Krishna explains towards the end of the 2nd chapter, what are the attributes of a sthita prajna, a person whose consciousness is fixed in the Supreme. After describing all this, the very last verse, Krishna is saying, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. This stage of the consciousness being fixed in the Supreme, this is Brahmi Sthiti. It's a spiritual platform. It's not a material platform. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Partha, this is what that stage is coming to the spiritual platform. Nainam prapya, na yenam prapya vimuhyate. Yenam prapya, yenam brahmi sthiti prapya na vimuhyate. One is never illusioned. You come to the stage of complete freedom from illusion when you come to that Brahmi sthiti. Esha Brahmi sthiti Partha. Nainam prapya vimuhyate. Yenam prapya na vimuhyate. Sthitvasyam antakalepi brahma nirvanam ruchyati. If one is situated, asyam sthitva antakalepi, even if one is situated towards the end of his life in that esha brahmi sthitihi, brahma nirvanam ruchyati, he attains brahma nirvanam. And Prabhupada translates the word brahma nirvanam as kingdom of God, spiritual kingdom of God. You attain that brahma nirvanam stage, and that is to attain the spiritual world, the spiritual planet, Krishna. Krishna is a personality, he has an abode, and he has activities, and to attain that association of the Lord and practice that and render service to him, that is considered to be the Brahmi Sthiti, Brahma Nirvanam. Now, if you see these last few verses in the Bhagavatam that Lord Kapila has been describing, in the previous verse, Kapila uses the words Bhaktya Dravad Hrudaya. With bhakti, Dravad Hrudaya, his heart melting. The yogi's heart, the devotee's heart melting. Bhaktya Dravad Hrudaya, Utpulakaha, with hair standing on end. Pramodhat, with joy. Autkantya Bhashpakalaya, Autkantya, occasioned by intense love. Bhashpakalaya, with tears coming from his eyes. All of these this is very advanced stage of consciousness that Kapila is describing. And in today's verse, Kapila is saying that Mukta Ashrayam, that's the stage of liberation. Here he at that time, Nirvishayam, detached from sense objects, Viraktam, indifferent, Nirvanam, Ruchyati, Atmanam, and Pratinivruttha Guna Pravaha, he is no more influenced by the modes of material nature. So, both are essential. When there are instances, especially in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, people manifested or exhibited all of this Bhashpakalaya and all of those kind of things, tears. But if you carefully study their activities, they were not Nirvishayam, Viraktam, Nirvanam, Pratinivruttha, Gunapravaha. That is called Sahajiyas. When people seem to exhibit these things, but actually they have not come to that stage, that is not a respectable stage. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they all strongly spoke about it, because those days, there were especially in Bengal and in those places, there are a lot of people exhibiting all of these kind of things, but actually not come to the stage of purification. And if you have all of these things, Nirvishayam, Viraktam, Nirvanam, and then if you don't have all of the Bhashpakalaya and all of those kind of experiences, then also you're not developed yourself very spiritually. One can be a Mayavadi and he can be Nirvishayam, Viraktam, Nirvanam, and all of those kind of things. Even in the stage of Brahman realization, all of these experiences are essential. So, we see how in Chaitanya's teachings, and in Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, all of these things are very, very systematically addressed. And one last point. Recently I was reading some of the circumstances that Srila Prabhupada was in, especially during his last days in 77. Actually, what was happening around Srila Prabhupada, if we read some of the biographical information about Srila Prabhupada, one of Prabhupada's servants, as early as August 1974, he says, Srila Prabhupada said things to me that I could not comprehend. He was a young devotee, 1974, maybe 4 or 5 years in devotional service, and he was playing the role of Srila Prabhupada's servant, young devotee. And so when he was serving and when he was closely with Prabhupada, Prabhupada made this statement. Srila Prabhupada said things to me that I could not comprehend. It was very disturbing. These words cut through my heart. He mentioned it to me on 2 separate occasions during his illness. Prabhupada was becoming ill once in a way, but otherwise his health was good in 74. This is discussion about 1974. He mentioned it to me on 2 separate occasions during his illness, saying, one of my disciples is simply waiting, when will the old man die so that I can become Guru? So, as early as 1974, Prabhupada was saying this, and he was saying that there are some, particularly one of my disciples, Prabhupada is referring to, he is simply waiting, when will the old man die so that I can become a Guru? Later in 1977, another devotee, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who was playing the role of a guard in Vrindavan, he recollects. Prabhupada talked about people in our movement who weren't devotees but had ulterior motives. On 2 occasions, this devotee is also saying, on 2 occasions Prabhupada pointed out to me that one person in particular was of that mindset. This person was charismatic and powerful. He held a high position. When Prabhupada was ill, Prabhupada said, all my disciples are praying for me to get well except for this person. This person is praying for my death so that he can take over. So Prabhupada was surrounded by leaders of the organization, and at least one of them, Prabhupada is explicitly saying that he's thinking that this person is praying for my death so that he can take over. So these were the realities around Srila Prabhupada. This is the biographical fact that we must understand, that Prabhupada was surrounded by senior leaders, senior disciples, not all of them, some of them, and some of them who were thinking like this. And then this devotee is saying, I was in Vrindavan serving as Prabhupada's guard 2 weeks before Srila Prabhupada's passing away. So this was really towards the end, 2 weeks before Prabhupada's passing away. The situation was very intense, very heavy. Prabhupada's body was frail. Bharadraj was singing beautifully as he always did. Bharadraj was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, very, very good disciple. And even when we were doing Little Krishna film animation, he helped us a lot. He took us to many important people in Los Angeles, and he played he was supporting our project. And so he was singing beautifully as he always did. Prabhupada absolutely loved Bharadraj and his singing. When Prabhupada heard Bharadraj and Yamuna Devi sing, he would go into trance. He would just listen. So one day in Vrindavan, Bharadraj was singing for Prabhupada, and it was a very somber mood. Devotees were sitting on the floor in Prabhupada's room and they were singing, except for this person who was sitting on a chair. Bharadraj was emotional and his voice broke on a note. This person elbowed Bharadraj and laughed. He made fun of the mistake, referring to that person whom Prabhupada had referred, who was praying that Prabhupada should die. So this was the kind of a situation 2 weeks before Srila Prabhupada's passing away. Another recollection by another servant of Srila Prabhupada in 1977, again, towards the last months of Srila Prabhupada. Upendra was caring for Srila Prabhupada in 1977. And according to Upendra, Srila Prabhupada said, "You're all standing here outwardly saying, you can't leave us at this time. But what will we do without you? Who will finish the Bhagavatam?" But inwardly, some of you are rubbing your hands together thinking, when will the old man die so we can spend his money? Srila Prabhupada had spoken this between tears. And when Upendra recollected, he also cried. Just see. And there was one more example of Srila Prabhupada speaking to Panchadravida Swami, another sannyasi at that time. Prabhupada told him, "You're praying for me to live, and they're in the next room praying for me to die." See the circumstances. 4 times, 4 occasions, 4 different devotees reminiscing this and telling this, what was actually going on in Srila Prabhupada's life during his last years, last months. And we also know Prabhupada's own servant at that time, another servant, said that there was a lot of pressure on Srila Prabhupada. The GBCs were putting pressure on him to appoint the next Acharya. And Prabhupada didn't want to do that. And it is also very well documented now, and everyone is aware, that so many disciples of Prabhupada wanted to become the Guru. It started as early as 1969, all the way up to 77. Now, when we see those videos of Srila Prabhupada's last days and all of that. So if you see Srila Prabhupada, although he was surrounded by all of these things and he was aware of all of these things, the kind of equipoise that Prabhupada exhibited, the kind of detachment, what Kapila Muni is saying here, what Bhagavatam is describing here, nirvishayam, viraktam, indifferent, unattached, nirvanam, pratinivruta guna pravaha, unaffected by the modes of material nature, the transcendental state. And that kind of, it is so very special. Prabhupada undisturbed. Even on the last day, 14th of November 77, Prabhupada was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lying on the bed, disciple would read out the verse and hold a microphone at his mouth, and Prabhupada would give the explanation. The state of Krishna consciousness, very, very special Acharya that Srila Prabhupada was. So, we are so fortunate that we are in touch with Srila Prabhupada and his books and his words. Living and exhibiting and demonstrating the consciousness, the levels of consciousness that the Bhagavatam is talking about. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.